So this morning I'm going to point out to you what it means to be entangled with the world and what it means to not be entangled with the world. You might ask, well, what are you getting at? Well, so right here in, is it Second Cephas? No, not Peter. His name was never Peter. His name was Shimon Cephas. Talks about down here. Verse 20, for if after they have escaped the pollutions of the world through the knowledge of not Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the name is of Hebrew origin, therefore it's a Hebrew name, therefore it is Yehoshua. Just like that, just like as you see it right here, not Jesus, okay? This is very critical to understand how one gets entangled with the world. What was the purpose of them changing the name from Yehoshua to Jesus or Jesus? It was to marginalize the Jews. That was the reason. And in so doing, they honored a false Messiah. Because as Yehoshua, not Jesus, pointed out in Romans 11, if the root is holy, then so are all 12 branches. And if you reject the branches, then that means you've also rejected the root. Okay? So in order to get the Jews out of their lives and out of their hearts forever, the Gentiles decided to change the name so that they could marginalize or banish the Jews from the whatever, okay, from their lives. All right? This is very important to understand. This is how one gets entangled in the world. Okay? So, and what was Cephas talking about? He was talking about the pagan world. And they are entangled back again. Involve themselves, entangled back therein, and are overcome. The latter end is worse than the beginning. Okay? So, I want to point out something to you, because I didn't know who Charlie Kirk's... we're going to talk a little bit about, not really about Charlie Kirk, but his beliefs and his pastor. Okay? So his pastor has a long, drawn-out video, about an hour and 13 minutes, but you'll see the text, the captioning here of what he says, what literally came out of his mouth. So he says, Paul recognized that while most Jews had failed to accept Yeshua, and it's not Yeshua, it's Yehoshua. Because Yeshua only means salvation. Yehoshua means Jehovah is salvation. As their Messiah, they nevertheless remain beloved for the sake of the fathers, Romans 11:28. Paul said the rejection of Jesus. So he uses the words Yeshua and Jesus interchangeably. Yet, in this particular video, he points out that the whole purpose of them changing the name to Jesus was to marginalize the Jews. Entanglement, folks. Entanglement with this world. You may still not understand what I'm talking about. Okay. You remember Candace Owens, right? You know, she went full on Nazi, Hitler-style Israel hate. She did. She's a Catholic. She married a Catholic. But wait a minute, she was working for Charlie Kirk and Turning Point up until 2023. And she had to resign because some of the things that she said about Hitler. What in the world is somebody doing who is supposedly pro-Israel hanging around with somebody who hates Israel, who hates the Jews, as much as Hitler hated the Jews? Entangling with the world. This right here, interchangeably using Yeshua with Jesus, is entangling yourself in the Jew-hating world. So I'm going to play some of this video, okay? And there's going to be some things in here that I'm going to point out.
Admonish Gentile believers not to be arrogant against the Jews and to consider their own origins. Remember that you were at a time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel.
He's using the word Christ instead of Mashiach.
And strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope without God in the world.
Using God instead of Jehovah.
Yet now by grace they've been brought near and share in God's promises. A little bit of reading, hang in there. Even before the first ecumenical councils, the church already started drifting away from Israel and its Hebraic biblical roots. After the very first church council recorded in the book of Acts, chapter 15, things started changing. First, the demographics of the church steadily changed. While it started out in Jerusalem as a 100% Jewish church, within a century or so, Gentiles became the majority. Jerusalem remained the spiritual center of faith, but the Roman wars dramatically changed the church's connection to Jerusalem and Israel. In 70 AD, Titus destroyed the temple, and a few decades later, Hadrian expelled virtually all Jews from Jerusalem and the land of Israel. The early church's unique spiritual connection to the land and the Jewish people was significantly weakened. A further blow came in 136 AD when Marcus became the first non-Jewish bishop of Jerusalem. And meanwhile, the spiritual center of gravity began gradually moving towards Rome and Constantinople. But here is the heaviest blow. Nicaea and the Jews. The final blow, however, took place in 325 AD in Nicaea, a city whose ruins can still be found in Iznik in northwest Turkey. This became the place of arguably the most impactful council in church history. The Nicene Council was significant for many reasons. It was the first council to take place when the Christians were no longer a persecuted minority. Rather, Constantine had embraced Christianity as the official religion for the entire empire, and it was the emperor, and not the clergy, who convened this council to consolidate the church as a unified force within his realm. Constantine didn't like Jews very much. The main focus of the Nicene Council dealt with the nature of Jesus as both human and divine, because they were dealing with Gnosticism and another of other heresies. On this point, the early church was riven with controversy. After lengthy and heated discussions, they finally reached a consensus on the Jesus question. For most participants, questions related to Jewish matters were of secondary importance, yet beginning at Nicaea and continuing at the councils and synods that followed, the largely Gentile church began separating from its Jewish origins. This shift occurred in three main areas. First, a change in calendar and religious holidays. Second, a change in church attitude towards the Jews. And third, a strict rule against Christians engaging with Jews.
Okay. So the switching of the name from Yehoshua to Jesus intersected or was parallel, however you want to look at it, falls in line with the Christians refusing to any longer engage with the Jews. You see a pattern here. So the church began to be, as it became less and less Jewish, began to be entangled with the world.
Could you imagine if I said from this pulpit, none of you should fellowship with any Jews ever? They're vile human beings. And if you go to a Jewish doctor, you will not be permitted. You will be an anathema. You'll be kicked out of the church. That was Europe.
And it's still Europe. Oh, you say no? You just wait. And it will also be the United States. You say no? You just wait.
Until the Council of Nicaea in 325, the churches were divided on how to celebrate Easter, which is Pesach. Jesus said in Luke, also in Matthew, I have so looked forward to having this Pesach, this Passover with you. Passover. It's not Easter.
Okay, so you know it's Passover and not Easter, or Pesach. Okay, listen carefully,
it's
folks.
It's Passover. His name was Yeshua.
Oh, wait a minute. He said his name was Yeshua. No, his name was Yehoshua, but go ahead, watch this.
Mary's not Mary, it's Miriam.
Okay, and Mary is not Mary, it's Miriam. I've told you folks that.
This is...
So why then, if his name was not Jesus, but Yeshua as you claim, why then are you using the name Jesus? Entanglement with the world.
Integration. And Sunday was never considered a holy day.
Why then are you holding church services on Sunday, if Sunday was never a holy day? Oh, pastor of Charlie Kirk. Why? Entanglement with the world. Now, as I point out here, see right here, this is his the website of this Godspeak something Calvary Chapel, which is the leader of or whatever. And even though you heard him say right out of his own mouth, Lordship of Jesus Christ, anti-Jew and anti-Israel, Yehoshua will save Israel. You cannot halt between two opinions. You cannot be lukewarm about this. Either you are entangled with the world or you are not. And people will say, what difference does it make? You know exactly what difference it makes. You just don't want to change. Let me show you right here. Welcome to Godspeak service time. Sunday at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and Saturday at 6 p.m. So the emphasis is on Sunday. That would be the day of Constantine, Constantine's day, his ordained day, the day honoring the sun idol, or Shabbat, it just is only at 6 p.m., which in some places is already the next day. Sunday. Of course, I don't know where he's located, but I'm just saying, if you were up north, right now you could be pretty close to Sunday. Now, God comes from Gotter or Gots, a national ancestor god in ancient German and Gothic mythology. So it is no wonder that the Germanic tribes, that would be Germany and much of Western Europe, including the English, use the term God instead of Jehovah. I was interrupted there for a second there, and so Gotter or Gots was a mythical founder and ancestor god of the Goths and related Germanic tribes, including the Geats, and connection to Odin. Over time, Gotter's identity blended with or was reabsorbed into the figure of Odin in Norse mythology. The name of Gotter is one of the many names attributed to Odin in the ancient Eddic poems. Now, everybody knows that Odin, and now you know that God is pagan. We are not supposed to be pagans, okay? Now, what does Jehovah say about his name? He does not say, I am the Lord. That's what your King James Version and the Catholic version lied to you. They don't want the Hebrew name anywhere in their face. It says, look very carefully, Jehovah. That is my name. And my glory I will not give nor share with another, neither my praise to graven images. So what is Christianity? Even the most ardent supporter of Israel Christianity is still dabbling with both, trying to appease both the Israel hater and Israel. Doesn't work like that. It does not work like that, folks. And here in this book, they call it James. I got to move this over. Can I move this? Okay. They call the book James, but it is not. His name was Jacob or Jacobi. He said, pure religion and unfit defiled before not God, but Jehovah. The Abba is to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction and to keep themselves unspotted, unstained from the world. So what I'm saying is, you do not associate with Israel haters, if you're a believer, and their idols. So, let me see if I can see something in here. Yeah, we have here, Turning Point USA hired Benny Johnson as Chief Creative Officer, and Johnson has been fired by BuzzFeed for plagiarism in 2000, suspended by in May 2019, Communications Director Candace Owens resigned after controversial remarks she made in December 2018 were publicized by some Turning Point USA campus chapters calling for her resignation. Why didn't they just get rid of her and fire her? And what in the world are they doing paying people anyway? Why does this have anything to do with money? What's going on here? Oh, look what we have here. Turning Point USA receives funding from conservative and right-wing donors and foundations, including several Republican politicians. And according to some sources, donors including the Ed Uihlein Family Foundation, heirs of the Schlitz Brewing Company, and Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner's Family Foundation. Turning Point USA also contributes money to its affiliate operations, including Turning Point Endowment. So Turning Point, that's where they get their money from, donors in the millions. Okay. 2016-17 financial year, Turning Point USA received $8.2 million in donations to the IRS, an increase from $4.3 million in the previous year. The same year, expenses for the group doubled. Imagine that. Reaching $8.3 million, most of which were employment-related costs, $4.3 million. In 2019, TPUSA's reported revenues from donors were $28 million, and CEO Charlie Kirk's compensation was $292,420. How does he have so many millions of dollars then? You can go look up his net worth, and you can find it. And then they have alleged tax code violations. I'm not even going to get into all of that. But it appears to be wrapped around money. Now, I've had people ask me, am I going to do seminars? I say, nope. Am I going to do this? Am I going? Nope. Nope. I utterly refuse. What I'm doing right now is how I'm going to get the truth out. People think that you need to spend money on advertising, you need to spend money on salaries. No, you don't. No, you don't. This is going out on YouTube and it's going out on BitChute. And everybody in the whole world will have access to it. Whether you decide you want to watch these videos, that's up to you. But that's as far as it goes, folks. Because I'm not going to be playing with money when it comes to the truth. So we go back. And in what context was Cephas speaking of this thing about being entangled in the world and being overcome, and the latter is worse with them than the beginning? For it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than to have known it and to turn from the righteous commandment delivered unto them. As it has happened unto them concerning the true proverb, the dog is turned to its own vomit again, and the sow that was washed back to the wallowing of the mire. What context is this? Well, we'll read the whole chapter and we're going to find context. There were false prophets among the people, and Cephas was speaking to Hebrews, Jews. What false prophets were he talking about? He's talking about Korah being one of them. And there were plenty more. Even as there shall some be false teachers among you who will privately bring in damnable heresies. And one of them is the name Jesus. That's right. Changing the name of the Mashiach is also changing the name of the Creator, because the name of the Creator, Yehovah, is in the name of the Mashiach. when you change the name, and Jehovah said that he is not going, that is his name, and he's not going to share or give away his glory to another. Not going to do it. Denying the Mashiach that bought them. How do they deny him? They choose another name. That's how you deny him. And to bring upon themselves swift destruction, and many shall follow their destruction, by reason of whom the way of truth will be slandered. And through covetousness. Oh my God, here we go. Covetousness. Shall they with vain words, molded words, make merchandise of you. It's about money. It's always about money. Whose judgment now for a long time lingers not, and their damnation slumbers not. Because if Jehovah, not God, spared not the messengers that sinned, but cast them down into, it says Tartaru, and Tartaru means it has something to do with abyss, and the abyssal zone is in the Mediterranean Sea, folks, known as the abyss. Abyssos is the Mediterranean Sea, and the abyssal zones in the Mediterranean Sea, and one of the abyssal zones is between Italy and Greece. And it's no wonder that the great fakery, the great counterfeit religion came out of that location. And delivered them into the chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, one of 8, a preacher of righteousness, and brought the flood upon the world of the unrighteous, and turned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemning them with an overthrow, making them an example unto those that should live unrighteously. And he delivered righteous Lot, who was vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them, and seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unrighteous deeds. Jehovah, knowing how to deliver the righteous out of temptation, and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment to be punished. And who are these unjust and unrighteous? Those that walk around after the flesh, lust of the flesh, of uncleanness, and despise lordship. Despise dominion, authority. The dominion of authority of what? Well, of Jehovah. What does the word presumptuous mean? Presumptuous means when you step outside, when you are line crossers. Bold and daring, they are self-willed. They are not afraid to speak evil of what is correct, what is honorable. Messengers which are greater in power and might do not slander and make a judgment against them before Jehovah. But these, as natural brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil of the things which they understand not, which they are ignorant of. Who are, well, see, you just had somebody go and made himself judge, jury, and executioner of Charlie Kirk. That's who he's speaking of. And who does he represent? Well, it turns out that a whole group of people knew in advance about the assassination. Yes, they did. The FBI is investigating it right now. It is a group of sexually confused people. We'll just leave it at that. And all over the internet, TikTok, what is that? I can't remember that one particular media source. I can't remember what it's called. They're calling for more shootings of anybody who speaks against them. This is what he's talking about. They shall utterly perish in their own corruption, and they shall receive the reward of the unrighteous, because they count it pleasure to it says riot, to break up, to enfeeble, especially the mind and body in indulgence. These are people who walk around in their homosexual parades, effeminacy, luxury, or debauchery. You know, it is self-explanatory. Spots they are, blemishes, sporting themselves. They revel with their own deceit and your own government. I pointed out in yesterday's video, your own government does this. The president that Charlie Kirk and this Pastor Roy, whatever his name is, supports this President Donald Trump, who had pride flags out there at the Vatican just a few months ago. While they feast with you, having eyes full of adultery, who cannot cease from sin, they lure, what is the word we use today? Oh, the words are slipping my mind. They lure unstable souls. A heart that is exercised with covetous practices. They are cursed children, which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bozar, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. And it was literally the case for Balaam. Wages, getting paid to do unrighteous things. So this right here was speaking of groomers. Having hearts full of adultery and cannot cease from sin, they lure unstable, or they groom unstable souls. Why? You see, why is this happening? Is because You're not teaching your children at home. How did the Epstein Island manage to have all those girls over there? Because these children were unstable souls. They were easily lured there. Okay? They are wells without water, clouds that are carried out in a hurricane, to whom the mist of darkness is reserved forever. When they speak excessively weighted words of vanity, of emptiness. So they say big words and they speak of nothing. And they do this to try to influence you, to try to impress you. They lure through the lust of the flesh, through much wantonness, and those who were clean escaped of them. Those that were truly escaped or fled from them return? Is that what it's saying? Yeah, they return in error. They go back to them. They go back to it. While they promise liberty, they themselves are the servants of corruption. For of whom a man is overcome, the same he is brought into bondage. Because so he's pointing out, after they escape the pollutions of the world through the knowledge of the Mashiach and Savior Yehoshua, they are again entangled therein and overcome. The latter is worse from them than. So what am I getting at? What am I getting at is this. You've seen the obvious here. But if you allow yourself to be entangled with the world's doctrines, even concerning the name Jesus rather than Yehoshua, or God, or Deus rather than Jehovah, you will eventually be dragged into anti-Israel doctrine. You think it couldn't happen, right? Well, these people are pro-Israel. They would never. Yes, they would. Because if they would compromise with the name Yehoshua, they'll compromise about anything. Because you see, as we have learned, it really is all about money, isn't it? Because you see, they wouldn't be able to get any money if they rejected the name Jesus. If you want to know the truth. And if you think that a pro-Jew pastor could never turn against the Jews, all you have to do is look at Martin Luther. Martin Luther was pro-Jew. All right? While some early statements might appear sympathetic to the Jews, well, let's have a look. In 1523, Luther published that Jesus Christ was born a Jew. No, there was no such a person named Jesus Christ born a Jew. If you use the name Jesus Christ, you are going to hate the Jew. If you use the name Yehoshua, you are a Zionist. And if you use the name Yehovah, you are pro-Jew. In which he criticized the Catholic Church for its cruelty towards Jews. He argued that the reason Jewish people had not converted to Christianity was the unchristian way they'd been treated throughout history. Then what happened? Well, you see, the Jews, they realized that Jehovah was not going to give his glory and honor to another name. Then he did this. In his anti-Jewish writings in 1543 on the Jews and their lies, Luther described Jews as a base, whoring people, calling for harsh, violent persecution. Among his recommendations for German rulers was setting fire to Jewish synagogues and schools, forcibly removing Jews from their homes, confiscating their prayer books and religious writings, forbidding rabbis from preaching under penalty of death, taking away their wealth and property. Where do you think that Adolf Hitler got his hate from? Adolf Hitler quoted a formerly pro-Jew preacher. Now, let me tell you what happens if you're going to be lukewarm. We'll go to Revelation 3. I can even watch this. Have not denied my name. Denied. Look. Revelation 3 and verse 8. This is a message to the congregation in Philadelphia. I know your works. I have set before you an open door, and no man can shut it. Because you have a little strength and have kept my word and have not denied my name. Because they did not deny his name, he's going to keep them from the hour of temptation. Because you have kept my word of my patience, I will also keep you from the hour of temptation, which is going to come upon the whole world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Okay? Now, let's look at the messenger to the congregation of the Laodicea. I know your works, that you are neither cold nor hot. Or you're a mixture of both, because that's neither cold nor hot, is it? That's lukewarm, a mixture of cold and hot. A mixture of the truth and a mixture of the lies. I would rather you be either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will vomit. See that word? Vomit you out of my mouth. Because you say, I am rich and increased with goods. Why would they say that? Because they were rich and increased with goods, making a lot of money. And have need of nothing. And you do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that you may be rich, with white raiment, that you may be clothed, that the shame of your nakedness does not appear, and anoint your eyes with eye salve, that you may see. As many I love, and I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous therefore, and repent. That sounds like tribulation to me. I don't know what it sounds like to you. But he tells these people who keep who do not deny his name, that he's going to save them from the hour of temptation. It doesn't sound like he's going to save these people from the hour of temptation who are lukewarm concerning his name. They are caught up, they are entangled with the world and its money. So, I want to explain a few things to some of you. That's the reason why I am not married. So I do not get entangled with the world. Well, Henry, Paul said, talked about those doctrines of demons, those who forbidden to marry. I don't forbid anybody to marry. What I'm saying is, civil marriages, and basically all civil marriages in the United States are, maybe with the exception of Orthodox Jews, are entangling with the world. Why do I say that? Well, so let me explain. So a man, he gets married, he finds a woman, he loves her, and he gets married to her, and she has his children. Then she decides she wants to get a divorce, and she demands that he pay child support. Okay? So that she can go and find her another man and go have some more children and get some more child support, or give the first husband's money to the second one. Is what they do. You see that happening often. That's entangling with the world. This is a common practice among women in this world. Why? Because the government in each state of the United States encourages this type of activity. So why would I marry? Why would I remarry? And entangle myself back in that nastiness. I'm not going to do that. Okay? Now, some of you like to send me links to things. Some of you send me links of anti-Semitic things. And I've warned you not to do that. And I told you if you keep doing it, that I'm going to block you. Block you from my emails, block you from my phone, block you from social media, block you from everything. Some of you didn't listen. Some of you thought that I would not carry out on my threat. Well, I did. I blocked you because you insisted on sending me anti-Semitic information and other nonsensical stuff out there to try to drag me away from the truth. I'm not going to be entangled with the lies, is what I'm telling you. And so, if you try to entangle me, I will block you. That's just the way it is. And if that means I live by myself, my hermit self for the rest of my life, well, that's fine with me. I'm fine with that. You need to be fine with that too. You need to be ready to live alone for the purpose of, if necessary, for the purpose of not being entangled with his world. So I hope you understand what it means to be entangled with this world and not to be entangled with this world.